Should people pay the cost of their own oppression? Samuel Adams didn't think so. In the colonial times, the British government gave the British East India Company a monopoly over the import and export of tea throughout the empire. That tea coming to America was taxed, without representation, causing the colonists to become upset. However, people still drank it. There was a boycott in place, but the taxed tea was cheaper than the smuggled alternatives. Samuel Adams didn't like that. He saw that as people paying for their own oppression. So he organized the Liberty Boys, who famously threw the tea into the harbor. And he happened to have a warehouse of smuggled Dutch tea that he had been trying to sell. But, that's probably neither here nor there. The point is that since people could not buy the taxed tea, they couldn't pay for their own oppression. Now I'm going to tell you about a word. It's called clientelism. It's one of the many ways in which an authoritarianism can keep power. Now, clientelism is when corporations receive favors from the state or dictator in power in return for support from the government. So you support the regime, you get contracts, you get government contracts. You can often not face regulation. You don't support the regime, you're likely to not receive any government contracts, and within whatever businesses you are doing, you will face regulations to the letter of the law. This is a way of guaranteeing the loyalty of the wealthy to the regime, especially the larger business owners. And the more centralized and the larger these businesses are, the more power they have, and therefore the more power the authoritarianism will have. A few years ago, many years ago, the US government thought it wise to defund NASA. Private companies supposedly are more efficient, and so it was decided that we would take public debt and turn it into private profit by contracting with agencies such as SpaceX to handle building rockets and spaceship design. SpaceX, which owns Starlink and is owned by Elon Musk, who is the CEO of Tesla, well, he and his companies have received upwards of $38 billion in contracts from the US government, including tax credits, subsidies, low interest loans, and those sorts of things. Now, this has been going on for 20 odd years or so. Recently, Elon Musk spent, I think it was $288 million in getting Donald Trump elected. And now, the President of the United States is doing Tesla commercials on the White House lawn. You can't get a clearer example of clientelism. Well, fascism was defined as the merging of the corporation with the state. Elon Musk, being a CEO who has received billions of dollars from the state, has now been put in charge of an agency of his own creation that doesn't have congressional approval, and that agency is terminating departments and firing federal employees without the consent of Congress and contrary to the laws and budget passed by Congress. This is a clear violation, or at least attack, upon representative government and our constitutional system of checks and balances. And keeping in mind the idea that fascism is the merging of the corporation with the state seems to be a pretty clear example of fascism in action. Musk isn't alone in this attack on representative government and the Constitution. Jeff Bezos, he owns Amazon. He also owns the Washington Post, a newspaper with a long and storied history. Traditionally, we look at newspapers to be the source of facts, knowledge, things we can reference. The Washington Post's motto is, "Democracy dies in the dark." Well, Jeff Bezos has now made it so that the only opinion allowed in the opinion pages is right wing. He says, for diversity of opinion, you can go to the internet. That is what the internet is for. It's a little bit of a cruel irony that he has this newspaper with this long and storied tradition of integrity, and now he's saying, yes, democracy dies in the dark, but don't expect to find well thought out, fact-based opinions from many directions in our paper. If you want to hear different opinions, go to the internet. Surely they will be fact-based there. Surely you will find very reasonable, knowledgeable people that you can trust on the internet. Now this is, again, an example of a way authoritarianisms can keep power. They can keep people disillusioned and feeling that they just can't know what's true. They lose faith in their institutions. They lose faith in the press. And then people kind of begin conclusion shopping. They decide emotionally what they want to believe and then find reasons to believe that. And the dictatorship or authoritarian government is more than willing to give them something that feels good to believe. It can also cause people to just check out, to just give up. It's like, what's the point? I can't really know what's going on anyway, and I can't fix it. That's what they want you to do. They want you to give up. They want you to attack people that are trying. I'm asking people to not. I'm asking people to try to stay calm, try to stay polite, try to stay rational. We need each other. Now, I know some of you are saying, well, hell is other people. Perhaps, but we are all fabric intertwined in the same cloth. And as a species, we need community, we need family, we need togetherness. So let's organize, let's work together, let's fight what's wrong. But let's try to understand that the people who disagree with us, they're people too. And they're trying to fight what they believe is wrong. Let's try to bring back some civility. I recently went to a Tesla takedown and posted it on X, and I got some right-wing hate. I had a sign that said, SpaceX, you're next. People were like, oh, what are you going to do? Attach yourself to a rocket? How will you protest this? Oh, are you going to leave those astronauts in space? And I say, no, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work to elect politicians who will fund NASA. We need to go back to funding the agency that got us to space and to the moon in the first place. We need to stop funding oligarchs who are going to attack our democracies and call it freedom. These oligarchs, the tech bros, whatever you want to call them, they want us to doom scroll. They want us to give up. So I say organize, keep at it, and ask yourself this question. When people buy Starlink, Teslas, when they buy from Amazon, when they have a subscription to the Washington Post, when they vote for candidates who support these government contracts for things like private prisons, privatizing the post office or something that's going to take public debt and turn it into private profit, are they paying for their own oppression?